The empty mansion. The morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the marble floors of Vikram Kapoor's 20-room mansion in the exclusive Juhu neighborhood of Mumbai. Outside, gardeners tended meticulously manicured lawns, while a security team monitored the perimeter. Inside, despite all the space and luxury, a peculiar emptiness echoed through the halls. Vikram adjusted his Italian silk tie while glancing at his watch, a limited-edition timepiece worth more than what most people in the city earned in 5 years. At 42, he had built Vision Tech from a small startup into India's fastest-growing tech conglomerate. The Forbes article calling him the visionary of South Asian tech sat framed in his home office, alongside dozens of other accolades. "Sir, your car is ready," announced Ravi, his personal assistant of 7 years. "You have the investors meeting at 9, followed by the quarterly board review at 11. "Thank you," Vikram replied, scrolling through emails on his phone. "Has Aradhya left for school?" "Ms. Sharma took her 20 minutes ago, sir." Vikram nodded absently. He hadn't seen his 8-year-old daughter this morning, or yesterday morning for that matter. Their interactions had become brief exchanges in passing, usually with Vikram distracted by a call or message. Since Priya's death 3 years ago, he'd poured himself into work, as if his company's exponential growth could somehow fill the void. His wife had left behind. "Should I have Devi prepare dinner tonight, sir? Or will you be dining out again?" Ravi asked. "I'll be meeting with the Singapore investors this evening. Tell Devi not to wait up." Vikram grabbed his briefcase. "Make sure Ms. Sharma helps Aradhya with her mathematics. Her last test scores were only 92%. As the sleek black Mercedes pulled away from the mansion, Vikram didn't notice the small figure watching from an upstairs window. Aradhya, who had convinced Ms. Sharma to let her return for a forgotten notebook. The girl's large brown eyes, so like her mother's, followed the car until it disappeared through the gates. Later that evening, Devi found Aradhya sitting alone in the mansion's grand dining room, a space designed for entertaining dozens of guests, now occupied by just one small child pushing food around her plate. "Not hungry, little one?" the housekeeper asked gently. Aradhya shrugged. "When is Papa coming home?" Devi's weathered face softened. "He has important business tonight, but he made sure Miss Sharma will help with your studies." "I got 100 on my science project today," Aradhya said quietly. "We made model solar systems. Mine was the best in the class." "That's wonderful," Devi exclaimed. "You must show your father when he returns." "He won't care," Aradhya mumbled. "He only cares about math." Later, after Devi had tucked Aradhya into bed, the housekeeper lingered in the doorway, watching the child clutch a framed photograph. Vikram, Priya, and a 5-year-old Aradhya, all smiling on a beach in Goa. It was the last vacation they'd taken before Priya's diagnosis. Across the city, Vikram stood before floor-to-ceiling windows in a penthouse conference room, shaking hands with investors as Mumbai's skyline twinkled below. His phone buzzed with a message from Ms. Sharma. Aradhya received perfect marks on her science project today. He replied quickly, "Excellent. Focus on mathematics tomorrow." Then he turned back to the investors, unaware that in his palatial home, his greatest treasure was crying herself to sleep, holding a memory of happier times close to her heart. Missed melodies. The quarterly earnings call had just ended, and Vikram leaned back in his leather chair with a satisfied sigh. Vision Tech had exceeded projections by 18%, a testament to his relentless work ethic and strategic vision. His phone vibrated with congratulatory messages from board members and business partners, but one notification stood out: a calendar reminder for Aradhya's school function that afternoon. He frowned, trying to recall when this had been added to his schedule. Probably Ravi's doing after Ms. Sharma had mentioned it. Vikram glanced at the mountain of contracts awaiting his review, then at the time. The school event started in 40 minutes. "Ravi," he called through the intercom. "Reschedule my afternoon. Meetings. Something's come up." The surprise in his assistant's voice was evident. "Sir, the development team has been waiting 2 weeks for this slot." "They can wait another day," Vikram replied, already gathering his things. Even he was surprised by his decision. 30 minutes later, Vikram slipped quietly into the back of the school auditorium, where rows of parents sat watching children perform. He spotted Devi several rows ahead. She'd been attending these functions in his place for years. She hadn't noticed him yet. The principal announced, "Next, we have Aradhya Kapoor performing Rag Yaman on the sitar." Vikram's eyebrows shot up. "Sitar? Since when did Aradhya play the sitar?" He watched, stunned, as his daughter walked onto the stage in a beautiful pink salwar kameez that he'd never seen before. She sat cross-legged before the instrument, took a deep breath, and began to play. The first notes floated through the auditorium, hesitant at first, then growing in confidence. Vikram sat motionless as the haunting melody filled the space. Aradhya's small fingers moved across the strings with surprising dexterity, her face a mask of concentration that reminded him painfully of Priya. "She's quite talented, isn't she?" whispered an elderly woman seated beside him. "Been taking lessons for almost 2 years now." 2 years? The realization hit Vikram like a physical blow. His daughter had been learning this instrument for 2 years, and he had no idea. When Aradhya finished, the audience erupted in applause. She looked up with a shy smile that transformed into shock when she spotted Vikram in the back row. For a moment, father and daughter locked eyes across the crowded room, her expression a mixture of disbelief and fragile hope. After the performances, Vikram waited in the hallway, feeling strangely nervous. When Aradhya emerged, clutching her sitar case, she approached him cautiously, as if he might disappear. "Papa? You came." "I did," he said, awkwardly patting her shoulder. "You play beautifully, like your mother." Aradhya's eyes widened. "You think so? Mama played sitar too?" "She did, in college. That's how we met, at a music recital." Vikram realized he'd never told Aradhya this story. She would have been very proud today. On the drive home, Vikram asked, "Who teaches you to play?" "Mrs. Joshi taught me first, but she moved away. Now I have a new teacher, Ms. Mehra. She says I have natural talent." "Ms. Mehra? I don't think I've met her." "She's new. She comes to the house on Tuesdays and Thursdays while you're at work." Aradhya hesitated. "I wanted to show you what I learned, but you're always busy." The simple observation cut deeper than any business setback Vikram had ever faced. In the rear-view mirror, he caught Devi's knowing gaze. That night, instead of retreating to his home office, Vikram asked Aradhya to play for him again. She performed a simple melody, making several mistakes in her nervousness, but Vikram listened attentively. When she finished, he noticed a photograph tucked inside her sitar case, the same beach photo she kept by her bed. That was the best day, Aradhya said quietly, following his gaze. "Do you remember how Mama taught me to float on my back in the ocean?" "I do," Vikram replied, surprised to find his voice thick with emotion. "She said you were as natural in water as a little fish." Aradhya smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "Ms. Mehra says music is like water. You have to let yourself float in it." As Vikram tucked his daughter into bed that night, a question nagged at him. How many other parts of Aradhya's life had he missed while chasing success? And who was this? Ms. Mehra, who seemed to understand his daughter better than he did? Harmonies of healing. Over the next several weeks, a subtle transformation began in the Kapoor household. Vikram started coming home earlier, at first just on lesson days, then more frequently. He created a standing rule that no meetings could be scheduled during Aradhya's practice time, bewildering his executive team who had never known him to prioritize anything above work. One evening, as Aradhya practiced in the music room, Vikram noticed a stack of photo albums on a shelf, untouched. For years. He pulled one down, dust scattering as he opened it to find pictures from before Aradhya was born. Priya, radiant in her wedding sari. Their honeymoon in Kerala. Priya performing at a faculty concert when she taught music at the university. She had beautiful technique, came Nandini's voice from the doorway. She had arrived early for Aradhya's lesson. You can tell from a photograph? Vikram asked, hastily wiping moisture from his eyes. The way she holds her hands, Nandini explained, sitting beside him. Musicians can see these things. She pointed to another photo. Aradhya has her mother's hands, the same elegant fingers. I never noticed, Vikram admitted. There's still time to notice many things, Mr. Kapoor. Vikram, he corrected. If I'm to call you Nandini. Their eyes met briefly before Aradhya bounded into the room, excited to show them both a new passage she had mastered. As days turned to weeks, Vikram found himself looking forward to Nandini's visits. Sometimes she stayed after lessons, the three of them having dinner together. Aradhya bloomed under the combined attention, her music growing more confident, her laughter returning to the once silent mansion. One rainy afternoon, Vikram arrived, home to find Nandini and Aradhya not in the music room but in the kitchen, flour dusting their clothes as they attempted to make chapatis. Papa, Aradhya giggled. Nandini is teaching me Mama's recipe. She says making dough is like composing. Music. You need to feel when it's right. Vikram stood transfixed, overcome by the domestic scene before him. For a moment, he glimpsed what life could have been, what it still might be. Join us, Nandini invited, her eyes warm with understanding. That night, after Aradhya had gone to bed, Vikram and Nandini sat in the garden pavilion, listening to the rain. Why did you really agree to teach Aradhya? He asked suddenly. You could be performing internationally. Nandini was quiet for a moment. When my father became ill, I returned to care for him. After he passed, I found teaching gave me purpose, especially teaching children like Aradhya, gifted, but somehow lost. Lost. Children who need music as a voice. She looked at him directly. I recognized something in her that I understood. The silence of grief. Vikram felt his carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. After Priya died, I didn't know how to talk to Aradhya about her feelings, so I focused on what I could control, providing financial security, education, but not emotional security, Nandini finished gently. I failed her, Vikram admitted, the words painful but necessary. No, Nandini disagreed. You survived. Now it's time to live again, for both of you. As if orchestrated by fate, Aradhya's voice called from inside the house. They found her sitting up in bed, tears streaking her face. I had the dream again, about Mama. Without hesitation, Vikram gathered his daughter in his arms. Tell me about the dream, he whispered. As Aradhya spoke, Nandini quietly retreated, but not before Vikram caught her eyes, a look of understanding passing between them. Something was healing in this house, and all three of them knew it. The standing ovation. The cultural center buzzed with anticipation as families filled the auditorium for the annual student showcase. Backstage, Aradhya adjusted her sari, a miniature version of one Priya had worn for performances, while Nandini helped secure her hair with fresh jasmine flowers. Remember, Nandini said, kneeling to meet Aradhya at eye level. Music comes from within. Play what you feel. I'm nervous, Aradhya admitted. What if I make a mistake? Then you'll continue just as we practiced. The beauty isn't in perfection, it's in honesty. In the front row of the audience, Vikram sat with an elaborate bouquet of marigolds and roses. Beside him was an empty seat, where Nandini would join him after helping Aradhya prepare. The past 3 months had transformed his life in ways he never imagined possible. His company still thrived, but he delegated more, restructured his priorities, and for the first time since Priya's death, the mansion felt like a home again. When Aradhya's name was announced, Vikram straightened in his seat. Nandini slipped in beside him just as the curtains parted. There stood his daughter, looking so much like her mother that his heart constricted. She began to play a composition Vikram hadn't heard before, something more complex and emotive than her usual practice pieces. "What is she playing?" he whispered to Nandini. "Her own composition," Nandini replied, eyes shining with pride. "She's been working on it in secret for weeks. She calls it For Papa and Mama." The melody started as something melancholy, evoking the loneliness Aradhya had felt in those silent years after her mother's death. Then it transformed, introducing hopeful notes that danced around the sadder theme, eventually blending into something new, neither purely happy nor sad, but profoundly beautiful in its complexity. Vikram found himself unable to speak, tears flowing freely down his face. He felt Nandini's hand slip into his, a silent anchor as emotions washed over him. On stage, Aradhya played with closed eyes, her small face serene with concentration, her fingers moving across the strings with growing confidence. The final notes lingered in the air, a question left hanging, awaiting an answer. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the audience rose as one, applause thundering through the auditorium. Aradhya opened her eyes, scanning the crowd, until she found her father's face. The smile they shared contained volumes, recognition, forgiveness, love. Backstage after the performance, Vikram enveloped his daughter in a fierce hug. "Your mother would have been so proud," he whispered. "I'm so proud." "Do you think she heard it?" Aradhya asked, her voice small. "I know she did," Vikram assured her. "Music transcends everything, even time and space. That's what Nandini taught us, isn't it?" They both looked at Nandini, who stood a respectful distance away. "You're part of this too," Aradhya said, reaching for her teacher's hand and pulling her into their circle. "You helped us hear each other again." Later that evening, after Aradhya had fallen asleep clutching her performance certificate, Vikram and Nandini stood on the terrace under a canopy of stars. "I can never thank you enough," Vikram said quietly. "You brought music back into our home." "The music was always there," Nandini replied. "In Aradhya's heart, in your memories. Sometimes we just need someone to help us listen." "And now?" Vikram asked, the question encompassing far more than he could articulate. Nandini turned to face him fully. "Now we continue the composition. Life is like music, Vikram. It evolves. It changes key. It introduces new harmonies." "I'd like you to be part of our harmony," he said, taking her hand. "Not just as Aradhya's teacher." Her smile was like sunrise after the longest night. "I think I already am." Inside the mansion that had once echoed with emptiness, a photograph sat in a new frame on the piano. Vikram and Aradhya at the recital, both beaming with genuine joy, with Nandini beside them, the three forming a new kind of family portrait. Beside it lay Aradhya's composition notebook, open to a page titled Our New Song, blank and waiting for whatever melodies tomorrow might bring. Unexpected teacher. 2 days later, Vikram deliberately rearranged his schedule to be home for Aradhya's sitar lesson. He worked from the sunroom adjacent to the music room, pretending to focus on quarterly projections, while actually listening to the gentle instructions coming from next door. "Feel the emotion behind the notes, Aradhya. A rag isn't just about playing the right strings, it's about conveying what's in your heart." The voice was melodic yet authoritative, somehow both gentle and firm. Vikram found himself drawn to it, closing his laptop to listen more closely as his daughter attempted a difficult passage. "I can't do it," Aradhya's frustrated voice carried through the doorway. "Take a deep breath," the woman responded. "Remember what we discussed about patience? Some things can't be rushed, just like the seasons or the tides." When the lesson ended, Vikram stepped into the hallway, finally coming face to face with Ms. Mehra. She wasn't what he had expected. In her early 30s, she wore a simple cotton salwar kameez and had her hair tied in a practical bun. No makeup, no jewelry except for simple silver earrings. Yet there was something striking about her, a quiet confidence that commanded attention. "Mr. Kapoor," she acknowledged with a small nod. "It's nice to finally meet you." "Likewise, Ms. Mehra. I've been hearing about your teaching." "Nandini, please," she corrected him. "And Aradhya is a wonderful student. She has remarkable sensitivity for music." "Papa." Aradhya appeared, clutching her practice book. "Did you hear me play the new section?" "I did," Vikram smiled. "It sounds challenging." "It is. But Ms. Mehra, I mean Nandini, says I'm getting better." "Indeed you are," Nandini confirmed, "with consistent practice and patience." Something in her tone made Vikram wonder if her comment contained a subtle message for him as well. "Perhaps you'd join us for tea, Nandini?" he found himself asking. "I'd like to hear more about Aradhya's progress." Over tea in the garden, Vikram learned that Nandini had studied at the prestigious Sangeet Research Academy in Kolkata before touring internationally with a classical ensemble. She'd returned to India 2 years ago to care for her ailing father and now taught select students while composing her own music. "Why only select students?" Vikram asked. "I believe in quality over quantity," she replied, meeting his gaze directly. "And I only teach children whose hearts are truly in the music." "And you believe my daughter has this quality?" "Aradhya plays with emotion beyond her years," Nandini said. "But she seeks validation, especially from you." Vikram stiffened slightly. "I'm sure she's told you I've been absent." "She doesn't have to tell me," Nandini replied calmly. "It's in her music, the yearning, the reaching. Children express through art what they cannot say in words." Any other employee would have been dismissed for such forthrightness, but something about Nandini's honesty disarmed him. "What would you suggest?" he asked, surprising himself with the vulnerability in his question. "Be present," she said simply. "Not just physically, but emotionally. Listen not just to her music, but to what the music is saying." Before leaving, Nandini mentioned an upcoming student showcase at the Cultural Center. "Aradhya has a solo piece. It would mean everything to her if you attended." That evening, Vikram found himself outside Aradhya's room, listening to her practice. The same passage over and over, each attempt more determined than the last. He thought about Nandini's words about patience and presence, about the things that couldn't be rushed. When he entered the room, Aradhya looked up in surprise. "May I sit and listen?" he asked. The smile that bloomed on his daughter's face was answer enough.